What's happening, everyone? I am so excited about the Premier League nearly being back that I cannot stop thinking about it. I've been thinking about how it's going to play out, the amount of jeopardy, the amount of intensity, the excitement is really building in me. And I've been thinking specifically about how I think this season is going to play out. As a result, I've been thinking about every single team and I've really given it as much thought as I can. I've explored every team in the entire league, and I'm therefore going to do a video now where I tell you the 3-point plan that every single team in the Premier League needs to execute to maximise their season. So I've broken the league in half. What we're going to do now is explore the first 10 teams alphabetically and how they need to improve, what they need to do to make sure that they have the best season that they can. Naturally, we're going to start with A for Arsenal. The first thing that they need to do that will definitely improve their season is score more goals. I know it sounds simple, but they genuinely do. They only scored 55 league goals last season, which is actually paltry. And when you think of the players that they have at their disposal, they need to be hitting the back of the net far more often. Lacazette, Aubameyang, they need to find a way to get them firing. Mikel Arteta has a responsibility to coax the best performances out of his best players, and he failed at doing that last season. So priority number one for Arsenal needs to be get Aubameyang firing and get the rest of the team scoring goals. You know, Smith Rowe looked brilliant at times. Saka looked brilliant at times. But each of them did not score enough goals. I think it's 2 and 5 respectively. And that isn't enough for the players that they are. So first things first, Arsenal, got to score more goals, mate. Point 2 for Arsenal revolves around leadership. They brought in Gabriel and Thomas Partey, and they're good, clever, astute signings. They did very well. I think Arsenal conceded the 3rd fewest goals in the league and the fewest from set pieces. So something was working, and the leadership and owning certain areas on the pitch did seem to happen, but they need more of it. I would say that Kieran Tierney is that club's leader. And as brilliant as he is, I think they need a more physical, demanding presence who elevates the performances of everyone around him. The way that Patrick Vieira would make sure that everybody played better. I think Gabriel and Thomas Partey have it in them to do that. And we saw glimpses of it last season. But those two players need to own it this season. And if they do, it could be a very good season for Arsenal. We all know that European football is fantastic. For so many reasons, it is the pinnacle of supporting a club football team. Going and following your team in Europe, planting your flag in European soil and lifting the European Cup. There is nothing better, I know that. But every cloud does indeed have a silver lining, and the fact that Arsenal aren't in Europe could benefit them. What you have to do when you are in Europe is rotate your squad. And you do genuinely need 2 world-class players per position. Chelsea do have that. Manchester City do have that. Arsenal do not. But they do not need it. They don't have to rotate as much because they have no European football to distract them and to take it out of their players. So they can focus on their domestic campaign. Which means that they don't have the talent in abundance the way other clubs do. But they do have a core, very good, very talented 15, 16 players. Make that count. Make those 15 or 16 players your squad, your first team, and don't rely on the bloated, overweight, overpaid and past it players. Focus, keep your squad small, do your best to benefit from a lack of European football. So to Aston Villa. Aston Villa last season, it started brilliantly. They beat Liverpool 7-2. It then went a little bit shoddy, a little bit underwhelming, and then kind of bounced back again. So they will be looking now to elevate that. They will be looking now to build on last season and the season before where they stayed up by the skin of their teeth and to really launch a bid for European football. How they do that, I have 3 points. The first thing is very difficult. They need to prepare for life without John Terry. I think John Terry was integral to their success last year. I think he played a really important part. And I know they've brought in Craig Shakespeare, but I'm not sure that he will offer that squad what John Terry did. I think you look at the reaction from him leaving by the players of Aston Villa, and they were all gutted. They were all thanking him, they were all wishing him well, and they really do seem to admire him. So as well as preparing for life without John Terry, I think they need to prepare for life without Jack Grealish. Not easy, but I think that they can cope. In Emi Buendia, who they've brought in, they have a real brilliant player. A player that chose them over Arsenal, which is very relevant and means an awful lot to how he views their season going. He truly believes that Aston Villa can have a good season, and that is very important. The fact that he has overlooked Arsenal to play for Aston Villa is huge. The fact that he was ready to play in the Premier League a year before he's actually playing in the Premier League is also huge. So I think that they can prepare for life without Grealish. It won't be easy. Obviously, he was amazing for them. You know, the amount of assists that he produced, considering he was injured, he got 10. So living without Grealish won't be easy, but it can be done. And if Watkins can have a season like he did last year, 16 goals, a real fan favourite, they love him on the whole end. If he can do that, if the players that we didn't necessarily anticipate having the season that they had last year, for example, Matty Targett, if he can have another year like last year, if Buendia can hit the ground running, if Watkins can lead the line and build on the season that he had last year, there is no reason that they cannot survive the omission of Jack Grealish from their side. Sorry, Aston Villa fans, I realise that the two things I've said so far on how you have a good season next year is coping with players that are leaving and staff members that are leaving. I'm now going to say something that I think you will find quite inspiring. Aston Villa won the Youth Cup last year, and I think that they should do it sensibly, be careful, protect these young lads, but they obviously have some real diamonds in the rough. So get them in and around the first team. Give Louis Barry an opportunity. Give some of those younger players who clearly have a desire to show what they can do, to play at the wonderful stadium that is Villa Park, to hear their names sung from the whole end. Give them an opportunity. I'm sure that they are good enough. I'm sure that they will get the opportunity, and seeing those players flourish in the first team will be inspiring for the whole club. So to Brentford. Now I think Brentford are in trouble, I really do, but if they are to have a good season, if they are to maximise their season next year and their first opportunity and dalliance in the Premier League, here's a few things that they need to do. The first thing, and genuinely a prerequisite to their Premier League survival, is to protect Josh Da Silva. Josh Da Silva's an amazing player, box to box, scores blinding goals. I've seen so many clips of him scoring from distance, truly superb player. So if they can keep him fit, he struggled with injuries, but if they can keep him fit, they have a chance. I'm so surprised that Arsenal let this lad go. He looks the real deal. He looks Premier League quality. So Brentford need to keep him fit to have any chance of surviving. On a similar note, and unsurprisingly, Ivan Toney. Whatever it happens, they need to keep hold of Ivan Toney. It doesn't matter. If they get the offer that they can't refuse, they have to refuse it. Ivan Toney playing for Brentford is the only way that they have any chance of staying up to score enough goals. The amount of goals that he will score in the Premier League could be the deciding factor between them staying up and them going down with a whimper. The third thing Brentford need to do to have any chance of survival is to stick to their guns. Thomas Frank was very clever. I watched them in the playoff final against Swansea, and Thomas Frank actually won that for them. It was the shift in formation, swapping from 5 to 4 at the back. It was shrewd, it was clever, and he needs to be as brave as... It was shrewd, it was clever, and he needs to be as brave as that going into this season. It's not going to be easy. The easiest thing for teams to do is to go into the Premier League and sit back, try and nick a point, try and nick 3 by defending resolutely. I think what Brentford need to do is be brave. They need to stick to their guns, and if they do that, I still think they're going down, to be honest, but if they do that, they have a chance of staying up. So, to Brighton and Hove Albion, I'll tell you what they need to do to have a good season. They need to protect, preserve, and fill with love the jewel in their crown. That is Tariq Lamptey. I think he'd only played for them 19 times when his hamstring went in March and we never saw him again. They need to get him fit, because every time I see him play, he makes the defenders who he's up against look like they've seen a ghost. Give the ball to Lamptey, hope for the best after that. I'll tell you what else Brighton need to do. They need to toughen up. They need to become bullies. And I mean bullies in the most positive of senses. Listen to this ridiculous stat for Brighton. They took the same amount of points, or virtually the same amount of points, from the top half of the table as they did from the bottom. From the 3 teams that went down, they only took 4 points. That's ridiculous. The teams in and around them, the teams that they finished above, they should be taking maximum points as often as possible. And the fact that they're taking only 1 more point from the teams that finished bottom 10 than they did from the teams that finished top 10 isn't quite right. The balance isn't right. And therefore, they need to be a little bit more ruthless, a little bit more arrogant, and a little bit more demanding of themselves when they're playing the teams that are in and around them down below. And the third thing Brighton need to do is back that guy Welbs. They really do need somebody who can put the ball in the back of the net, and they need somebody that can reach, at the very least, double figures. If somebody can hit around 10 to 15 goals a season for them, that will be enough, because they do create chances. They play an expansive way. They are very good at making sure that their strikers have opportunities, but until now, their strikers haven't been ruthless enough. This season, Danny Welbeck, back him. It's going to happen for him, I'm sure. And if it does, Brighton could have their highest ever finish. To Turf Moor. And I'll tell you what they need to do. They need to find somebody to share the goal burden along with Chris Wood. Chris Wood has hit double figures in the Premier League for 4 seasons running. But nobody from Burnley is joining him. And I think they've got some good players. Barnes seems to pop up with a goal. Rodriguez seems to pop up with a goal. But it doesn't happen regularly enough. Somebody needs to share the goal burden. If they can bring someone in who can definitely hit the target in the way that Wood does, who knows where they could finish? They could end up with a partnership up front who could score 20 goals a season. Imagine where they would finish if they had that. Home form. Everybody will tell you that Burnley is a tough place to go, won't they? It's really hard to get results, Turf Moor. Oh, it's tricky for top teams. It's a myth. It's just not true. Burnley ended last season without a win in their last 11 home games. They need that to change. It will, of course, because home fans make a massive difference. But even without fans, even in the conditions that last season were played, no wins in the final 11 is not good enough. Turf Moor needs to be a fortress again. I rate Dyche. I give him a lot of credit. I think he's a brilliant manager, I really do. And I've got a lot of stick for saying that. But when you think about what he has done and the history that he's made at Burnley, I think what they need to do is make more history. That is my advice to Burnley. Under Dyche, they've had their first win at Old Trafford since the 60s, their first win at Stamford Bridge since the 70s. They beat Arsenal last year, didn't they? A day when I thought Arteta was going to be sacked. And I just think they need to do more of that. Can Sean Dyche give him a little bit of money, give him a little bit of impetus? I think he is the guy that can drive that Burnley team to new highs. Chelsea. So, for Chelsea, I think the first thing we need to do is make Mason Mount captain. I think that we've been looking for a homegrown captain since John Terry retired, and he is the man. He is the player that we need. He is our future, and the future is now. Make Mason Mount captain. He exudes Chelsea. Chelsea exists in his DNA, and the performances that he has regularly churned out for Chelsea over the past 2 years, the performances that he has put in for England, he is our captain. He is everything that we want him to be and more. There isn't a flaw in his game. Mason Mount captain now. Point 2, don't sack the manager. Easier said than done at Stamford Bridge, I know. But whatever happens, however it goes, Thomas Tuchel is clearly a phenomenal talent. What he did coming into Chelsea and changing us from a team that were in disarray to making us European champions is historic. It's actually one of the best things that has happened in the Premier League from a manager. Somebody that can come in and do that shows what a good manager he is. It shows what a brilliant tactician he is, and it shows how good he is at getting the best performances out of individuals. So back him. Even if it goes wrong, even if there are moments when it doesn't look like it's going well, just back the manager. Crucially, by the way, that was obviously aimed at the board. I know the fans back the manager. The Stamford Bridge faithful have always been incredibly supportive when managers deserve it, and Thomas Tuchel certainly does. That was aimed entirely at the board. And what else I think we can do to make the most of our season next year is just enjoy our brilliant fullbacks. Fullbacks is a tradition at Chelsea. You know, it goes back to Tommy Docherty, Glenn Hoddle did it, didn't he? Antonio Conte, obviously, with Moses and Alonso. Fullbacks is in our heritage, and making the most of them is something that we should certainly be doing. And in Ben Chilwell and Reece James, we have top-tier fullbacks. Let's let them bomb on, give them the freedom, enjoy it, because they are special. And I think that with them in full flow, we could be in for a really exciting season. So, to Crystal Palace and Patrick Vieira, what do Palace need to do to have a good season next year? Well, I will tell you, the first thing they need to do, stop conceding goals from set pieces. They conceded 13 goals from set pieces last year. Only 2 clubs conceded more. That is obviously not good enough. That is obviously something that Patrick Vieira needs to sort out immediately. And people often talk about Hodgson as being an organiser and somebody who keeps very shipshape at the back. 13 goals from set pieces. Not good enough. Unsurprisingly, not good enough from Roy Hodgson. So Vieira needs to sort that out immediately. Kouyaté, Schlupp, Ayew, Zaha, at least are going to be going to the African Cup of Nations. I don't know what the answer is here for Patrick Vieira, but he needs to work out how he's going to cope when some really key players for him, some brilliant players for him, are going to go off to the African Cup of Nations. Tricky. I don't know what the answer is. I'm trying to give suggestions here, but all I can do here is flag a problem that I hope Patrick Vieira has the answer to, because that could be a really gruelling period if he doesn't have the right answer for Palace. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but the way that Crystal Palace will have a good season is to get the best out of Christian Benteke. I mean, it feels like we've taken a bit of a time leap to be saying that sentence again. But I thought he finished the season last year. It was very impressive. He looked like his old self. And when he's on form, when he's leading the line in the way that he can, there aren't many people that can do it better. It's just he isn't ruthless enough in front of God. There's so many flaws to his game. But when he's on song, he can be very good. And there were moments towards the end of last season where he did look back to his best. If Vieira can get him playing as well as we know he can, he could actually be the key. Weird, isn't it? Oh dear, Everton. Everton are a club I'm really worried about next season. I think they are in for a tough time. But for it to go as well as they can under Benitez, the first thing they need to do is sort out their home form. Last season was their worst ever season at home. And I know there were reasons for it. Of course, empty stadium has an impact. But I mean, come on. It was their worst ever season. Everton are a very proud club. Never been out of the top flight. And that was the worst they have ever delivered at home. Despite all of the excitement that they had around that team, they need to sort out that home form. The other thing they need to do, and I do not know how they do this, is back Benitez to a degree, I guess. For it to go well, I think they're going to need to suspend their rivalry and put it on hold, just a brief hiatus. Just put it on a spa break. You can come back to the resentment later, but for now you've just got to back Benitez. I mean, when Carlo Ancelotti left, I mean, that was totally out of the blue, by the way. Who saw that coming? But when he left, and you thought about the possible replacements, Rafael Benitez was bottom of my list. I never thought it would happen. Bold, weird, incorrect move, in my opinion, from Moshiri. But for this season to go well for Everton, I think that their fans need to somehow get on board with Benitez. Or get him out. One or two. To be honest, I think it's going to be a long and arduous season for Everton. But if it isn't, if it goes as well as it could, the reason it will be because of two players. And that is the relationship between Lucas Digne and Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Digne is brilliant, provides a lot of assists, a very good player. And Calvert-Lewin proved that he is a decent centre-forward. So they need Calvert-Lewin scoring because the goals don't really come from elsewhere. And they need Lucas Digne assisting because, equally, the assists don't really come from elsewhere. But Everton, this is a problem, a real problem. Marching on together, I'm of course talking about Leeds United. It's a brilliant season from them, and I've had to eat a bit of humble pie. I got a message that I thought was very funny. I don't know if you saw this, but Leeds United were handing out kits, the new kit for this season, to certain fans, and somebody said that they should have sent me one with rent-free on the back. I thought that was very good. So keep up the great work, Leeds fans. I'm sorry if I've upset any of you, because I hope that this will pacify you. You were brilliant last season. You got it right, and I think that you are going to have a really strong season this year. I think that Marcelo Bielsa is fantastic, and there you go. I've said it. How do you make the most out of this season? I think the first thing you have to do is just embrace Patrick Bamford. People often ask the question, can Patrick Bamford do it in the Premier League? And the answer is emphatically yes. 17 goals, 7 assists. What a player, what a guy. Make the most out of him. The way that he leads the line is brilliant. I think he was dealt a really harsh ride by Gareth Southgate not getting the England call-up. He totally deserved it. The other thing I think Leeds United need to do next season is keep aspirations and expectations in reality. Yes, Europe is on the horizon. Europe can be discussed. But we should also discuss survival. I'm not suggesting that they're going to struggle. I'm not suggesting that they're going to go down. But their priority, Leeds United's first priority, needs to be the 40-point mark. It needs to be making sure they're not in the bottom three. That should be the priority. And after that, you can then build. I believe that Leeds will finish somewhere between 6th and 10th. But their first priority, for the club that Leeds are, their first priority needs to be not going down. And the reason I say that is because the Premier League is a far richer place with Leeds United in it. The fact that I have a rivalry with Leeds, the fact that I say negative things about Leeds is because there is a rivalry with Chelsea and because I care about Leeds. That is almost complementary. So I don't want Leeds to go down. I look forward to going to Ellen Road in disguise because it is a brilliant stadium, and I think that the stadium will actually be my third point here. Sometimes their new clubs to the Premier League struggle with the second season syndrome. that shouldn't be an issue for Leeds because they're going to get the burst of promotion in the first year, the second year. They're going to get the home partisan aggressive support of the first year that would have come in the second year because this is Leeds United's fans' opportunity to let Rafinha know how much they love him and let Chelsea and Manchester United know how much they don't love them. The first thing Leicester need to do is work out how to live without Jamie Vardy. Over half of Jamie Vardy's goals last year were penalties. He is now 34 years old. They need to have a post-Vardy plan because at the moment it feels like they're so reliant on him, despite the fact that he is 34 years old and isn't firing the way that he once was. He's a player who we know was brilliant. He's a player who we know relied so much on pace and on his day can be sublime. The way that he runs a channel, it's almost unlike any other. As a defender, he must be your worst nightmare. But you cannot rely the way they do on a 34-year-old. They have aspirations of playing in the Champions League. That cannot be Jamie Vardy's responsibility. He cannot be held solely accountable to score the goals to get them there. So plan for life post-Vardy. Basically, Daka, Iheanacho need to be weighing in. Vardy can be the secret weapon, but he cannot be the plan A every single week. I think every fan in the country thinks that their side are rubbish when it comes to set pieces. But with regard to Leicester, they genuinely are. They really are bad. Only two sides scored less goals than them from set pieces, and they conceded 12. So set pieces aren't working for them. And when you think about the players in that side, they should be. When you think about the delivery that they have, the options for delivery, for some reason, set pieces just aren't working for them. And Brendan Rodgers needs to find out why. Last season was the second best season that Leicester have ever had. 137 years. That was the second best season they've ever had in that time frame. They now need to build on it. They need to go into Europe and be adventurous and cavalier and swashbuckling and get some big results and make sure that they are present when the Europa League really hots up. Right, so that concludes it. I thought the best thing to do is to break this video into two, obviously. So we've done the first half of the Premier League. That we have gone up to Leicester. So we now know what every club from Arsenal to Leicester need to do to get the most out of next season. Join me for the second part of the video. It will be out very soon. Keep an eye out. So you don't miss it, why not click subscribe? Do me a favour, comment below. What do you think of the points I've raised?